is a nice section prayer, and then Krishna's reciprocation with Vishnu Maharaj, and Vishnu Maharaj's request on to Lord Krishna, and Vishnu Maharaj's bewilderment and lamentation. Also, we'll see that shows Krishna's merciful nature about his devotees also. When are you ready, Haridha Mataji? We can start, Mataji.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiret Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestiki. So we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 8, prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit saved. Text 36. Starting from text 36. Text 36. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop repetition of birth and death. Text 37. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? We are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us. Now, when all these kings are at enmity with us. Text 38. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Text 39. O Gadadhar, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. Text 40. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits. The rivers are flowing. The hills are full of minerals and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. Text 41. O Lord of the universe, Soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. Text 42. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Text 43. O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distresses of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the preceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances. Text 44. Sutta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power. Text 45. Thus accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly. Text 46. King Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced, despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyasa and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. Text 47. King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved by just a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. Text 48. King Yudhishthira said, O my Lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many, many phalanxes of men. Text 49. I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins. Text 50. There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me. Text 51. I have killed many friends of women, and thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. Text 52. As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud, or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit Saved. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Sundaracala Prabhu, whenever you can start, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna, Babaji. Today we will cover the rest of the section of the Kunti prayers of 8th chapter, 1st canto, from verses 35, 36 till 43, covering the prayers, and followed by the summary of Krishna's glories and Lord's instructions with aggrieved Maharaja Yudhishthira, and the conclusion of this chapter. We'll start with the brief prayers. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपथकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पावनं सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Yesterday we the prayers of Queen Kunti were discussed by Sri Krishna Prabhu, and the verses from 18 to 43 were basically covered. 18th to 20th, where the knowing of the Lord was how to know the Lord was prayed by Kunti. Next 21 to 25, I am fortunate, as she expressed her fortunate from 21 to 25. And from 26 to 28 verses, qualification to approach the Lord were explained by Queen Kunti. So one of them is not to be intoxicated by the birth, high birth, and high family, and even with knowing very highly learned in the Vedas. So all such things, akinchana gocharam. Anyone who is not intoxicated by those opulences will be able, will gain the qualification to approach the Lord. And 27th verse, it was mentioned that the second qualification is akinchana vittaya, which is property of, that means Krishna is actually a poverty of, property of materially poor people, impoverished. That qualifies them so that they can approach with more sincerity, as Prabhu was mentioning yesterday. And it was highlighted in verse 28 by Queen Kunti, how Krishna is equivocal, equal to all, but it's just as he's he is perceived as time and controller. He is equivocal, but the vision of the seer, depending on the vision of the person who is looking at Krishna, he is perceived in different ways. Just like sun is perceived as sunlight is perceived as mm, desired. It is required for someone, but most of the living entities, except the nocturnal living entities who don't like, owls don't like to see sunlight, and they are and they don't want to come out. So depending on our perception. So 29 to 31, the Lord's nature is described as inconceivable and bewildering. And I especially liked yesterday one of the verses covered by Queen Kunti. Actually, so in this verse, I'll just summarize verse 31, where Krishna was, so Queen Kunti is remembering how he uh, mesmerizes and bewilders the devotees and everyone. And here he's mentioning, and she is actually implying and wondering why, when we read this verse, like summary reads as, "My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflowed with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes, and you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me." So Kinvanti is saying, um, the third line means Vaktram Niniya Bhayabhavanaya Sthitasya. That means someone who is bending their head in front of judge, or who is judging them. He's here. Krishna is bending his head as if he has done some criminal act, and like Yashoda, like in the courtyard of Mother Yashoda, is ready to take the judgment. And samam vimohayanti bhirapi yad vibheti. And it is mentioned that when you are afraid, though fear is afraid of you, this sight is very bewildering to me. Yashoda was actually, some people might say, why are these people offering the diyas and doing circumambulation? What kind of god is he? Yeah, if himself is crying and Mother Yashoda is chastising him. So answer for that is, everybody who has learned the pastimes of Krishna, for example, he could cause terror to the entire ocean when Lord appeared as Ramchandra. He was not accepting request when Ocean Lord was not accepting his request. He just did a little dhanush tankar. He just took his bow and mildly he just pulled that string, and the sound of it with the dhanush tankar, all the alligators, sharks, whales got perturbed, and the ocean god came out with arati plate, and Lord, and he requested, Lord, please, 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 don't dry me up. And if you look at this pastime as a Ramchandra, he could cause terror And now what is happening? The person who could cause terror is now he's crying and his eyes are filled with terror seeing Mother Yashoda, like as if his future is dependent on her judgment and no more. Like, what is the judgment of Yashoda? You no more toys and uh, no more playmates, and milk cannot you cannot have any more milk products. As first of all, you cannot even go out of the home. So what are the mistakes that Krishna did? So why is Yashoda is so angry? So the offenses that Krishna did, first he stealed, and then he steal the butter. Now he broke the pots, and then he did distributed to many monkeys the milk and the milk products. And then on the top of it, he ran away from Mother Yashoda, seeing the mother. After that, the fifth mistake that he did is making Mother Yashoda run behind him in streets of Vrindavana. And then after after he was caught, he spoke so many lies. Uh, and seeing this, Mother Yashoda decided, let me punish him. So she tried to bind him with a rope. So Krishna, although so much of activities he planned on that day, he was so much to do, like stealing butter and going home, going to gopis' homes and doing some mischief, playing with friends, going to forest. So his plans were all he kept aside, and he surrendered to Mother Yashoda as if his future is in her hands. So that's why here in this verse, Kunti is saying, seeing him, the whole the fear is personified as is fearful, but however, because of his um, special Leela, Krishna gave up all his opulences. So that's why, Krishna is having a lot of opulences, like, um, for example, he's Atmarama, he's Purna Kama, he's Purna Manorama, he's having, um, you know, um, Sarvakala. That means uh, he's perceived as a time, Sarvakala Vyapa, and also Sarvadesha Vyapa. He's everywhere. So all these opulences he kept aside to, so that he's bound to bhakti. So later, the various opinions about birth of Lord Krishna were discussed in verse 32 to 35, and one of them being, we'll discuss the step number 35, the real reason for Krishna's appearance. So the real reason, why did Krishna appear in this world, is to rejuvenate the Bhakti Yoga. So that is the real reason mentioned by Prabhupada in the purport. And here, there is a message to the devotees that the devotee is actually greedy to serve Krishna, though the entire and led the entire universe, as Queen Kunti is saying, let everyone take advantage of as a relief for this soul's suffering in this material existence. Let all the living entities take advantage of Shravana, Smarana, and then uh, serve the Lord. And the other message is that others are doing bhakti. Let's take pleasure in it. That is all. That is the feeling of Queen Kunti in this prayer. And here there is uh, a little cycle explained in the verse 35, where Klish, Avijja, which is knee signs, leads to Kama, unwanted desires. And this Kama leads to Karma, which is fruitive work. And this fruitive work, which is motivated by Kama, leads to Klisha, which is nothing but uh, Klisha is nothing but difficulties and that we face in this material creation. So this is a cycle. One leads to another one. So the solution that Queen Kunti is providing here is Shravana Smarana of Krishna. And however, this destruction of suffering is incidental. The actual result of hearing about you is seeing your lotus feet. So though we do Krishna Bhakti and cause destruction of all these klesha, difficulties, that is the formula given by Queen Kunti, the actual result of hearing, that is incidental, but the actual result of hearing is seeing the darshan of his lotus feet. That is the actual result. Text 36. So potency of devotional process was highlighted here. What is the potency of Bhakti Yoga? Bhavapravaho uparamam padambujam. Um, you can certainly see the lotus feet of Lord, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So Queen Kunti's question here is indirectly she is asking, do you desire to leave us today? You know, when Krishna might say, yeah, I'm busy, I have so much to do in Dwaraka, I need to go back to Dwaraka. So Queen Kunti is giving him a hint here in her prayers. You don't have to go there. All your works are automatically accomplished. Like Sakrute Hita. So all your works are automatically accomplished. You don't need to go there in person. You be with us, like that she was conveying in the next verse. So here, this is one of the interesting purports where Prabhupada mentioned. So in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, where it is generally Bhagavad Gita is generally heard, chanted, repeated by people in general, but in spite of such hearing, um, uh, you know, they will not. Most of the people might experience that they will not be able to see the Lord eye to eye. Why is that? The reason here is Shravana is very important, and whom do we need to hear Shravana of the Lord pastimes? Not from the unauthorized persons who are learned by academic qualifications. Because Prabhupada says it's simply waste of time if we attempt to hear from them. Therefore, first one should select a competent, bona fide speaker and then hear from them. When hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes which are will become automatically perfect in its own way. So different transcendental activities um, will automatically give desired result provided one's hearing is perfect as per Prabhupada. In the authorized hearing process, dealings, some unauthorized hearing processes, you might, Prabhupada says, might sound something like dealings with, they want to discuss more about dealings with gopis. Such inclination of a speaker and listener is nothing but lusty feelings of a hearer. And also, he's saying, never indulge in such hearing. One must hear about the Lord from very beginning, not directly jumping to Canto 10 and discuss the confidential pastimes. And that will help perfection of progressive development. Otherwise, it will cause obstruction. One should not think that Pandava's pastimes are less important and his dealings with gopis are more important. And that is also incorrect opinion expressed by Prabhupada. And Lord is always, because Lord is always transcendental. And he's and this kind of approach is conducive to this type of hearing is conducive to spiritual life. So text 37 to 43, Queen Kunti appeals for more association. So in 37, she expresses complete dependence, and and it is the so Queen Kunti is saying, is it the time to go? Because we just Yudhishthira Maharaj just started to rule the kingdom, and we need further protection. It is not the time to go because we have so many enemy kings and they and envious of Pandavas, and they just took up the kingdom just now. So we please stay back, and they need more of your protection. And because Queen Kunti is saying this because Krishna might say, okay, I can stay back but for protection you have so powerful Bhima and Arjuna. They are very powerful, right? So, and also the king is also Dharma personified with King Yudhishthir, and the Yadavas are your friends who are also very powerful. You have no worries actually, like that Krishna might say. So this is the that's why Queen Kunti is saying we all, including Yadavas, Pandavas, are all simply dependent on your mercy. So without you, we are like a, lifeless body, soulless body. Like that, she explains her situation. Prabhupada says, Pandavas are most fortunate because all good luck that they were entirely dependent on mercy of the Lord. And the material world to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is utmost significance of misfortune. Prabhupada also says, the perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. In text 38, Pandava's fame, activities without you are like senses without soul. Um, so even though our body is very well built, without soul it is useless. So that is what Queen Kunti is inferring here. Text 39, after you leave, real sufficiency is completely dependent on Lord Krishna. That is the message by Queen Kunti in 39 and 40. Real self-sufficiency is not to be independent, but is completely dependent on Lord Krishna. And in the text 40, it is mentioned, if you are here, my paternal family, the Vrishnis will suffer. If you go, my sons, Pandavas will suffer. These partialities are troubling my mind. She is expressing that and that, and also Prabhupada mentions here, the more we increase the trouble industries to squeeze out of the vital energy of human being. So the industrialized society actually squeezes the energy of a human being and dissatisfaction of people in general. So Prabhupada says, the nature law take advantage without being captivated, without being exploitative, motivated by exploiting nature and trying to lord over it. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of exploitative attempts. If a human civilization has sufficient grains, minerals, jewels, water, milk, etc., then why should it hanker after industrial enterprises at the cost of labor of unfortunate men? So all these gifts are naturally dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So we shouldn't really work so hard for them and make our life so much engrossed in it. Prabhupada mentioning that. The indications by Queen Kunti are just to the point. What is so essential for a human life? And for text 41, she's saying, please cut my family bondage. Why am I overly indulged? Why Queen Kunti is saying is this because why am I overly indulged into family affection? I'm so much pulled towards Vrishnis and Pandus with both, from the mother side and the father side. And if she's expressing his opinion, and let's not misunderstand, like Jnanis, where Kunti has two types of relationships here, biological and soul relation. And because Krishna here, he might think with this prayer, why are you cutting relationship with my devotees and thus me? Pandavas are devotees of Krishna. Why are you trying to cut? And Vrishnis are devotees of Krishna. Why are you trying to asking for cutting relationship with me? She's actually asking for cutting a biological relationship, not the soul relationship. So perceive spiritual aspects of relationships not as my sons, as relatives cut only the material aspects of relationships. Um, and uh, That's the essence of this verse. And text 42, mood of chanting is explained here. I was hearing to Rompad Swami Maharaj's class one day, where the mood of chanting, here, the mood of chanting is very wonderful. We should chant in this mood. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn onto you without being diverted to anyone else. So, not just detachment to family relationships, be attached to Krishna. That is bhakti. So, focus on attachment to Krishna and spiritualize everything. That is the essence. And be constantly attached to you alone. Kunti is saying, let me by mind be attached to you alone. And that is the message and mood within which we can actually chant. Mm, And summary of Krishna's glory was explained in text 43. I'll conclude in another 5 minutes. Summary of Krishna's glories. For example, Sri Krishna Krishna Shakha, Vrishni Rushabha, Avani Druk. So like that, Krishna's glory were explained. So there are actually 10 glories of Krishna. One is he is a Krishna who is all attractive. He's a friend of Arjuna. He's chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, and he is a destroyer of disturbance elements in the society, and his power never deteriorates, and is proprietor of transcendental about Goloka Vrindavan, and he descends just to relieve the distress of cows, brahmanas, and devotees, and he is possessor of all mystic powers, and the um, and he is the a perceptor and spiritual master of the entire universe. And lastly, your Almighty God. And she says, I offer all my respectful obeisances. Text 44 says, Lord's enchanting response for all the prayers that Queen has just said. Lord responds with this smile, mild smile. And here, anything that is enchanting in this world is said to be representation of the Lord, Prabhupada mentions. The conditioned souls who are engaged in trying to lord over the material world are enchanted by his mystic power, but his devotees are enchanted in a different way by the glories of the Lord. And similarly, he says, devotees pray in the choicest words. That's why he's called Uttama Sloka. So, no amount of chosen words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory, but he's simply satisfied by prayers of devotees, as if the Father is satisfied even by um, broken linguistic attempts of a growing child. Here, it is expressed as Queen Kunti is Mohayan iva Mayaya. That means she was also subject to Maya. But what kind of Maya is that? Prabhupada says Maya is used in the sense of Lord's mercy upon Kunti Devi. 45 to 52, Lord's interactions with aggrieved Maharaj Yudhishthira was described. So here, 45, Yudhishthira's love he expresses love. It shows that the Lord is, and despite he saying, I want to leave right now to Dwaraka, with the plea and attempts of King Yudhishthira, he decided to stay back for a few more days. So what that shows is that the Lord is conquered only by the love of his devotee. Although he is fully independent in all his dealings, he doesn't have to oblige the request of Yudhishthira, but he still decided to stay back just to oblige. And 46 to 47, Maharaj Yudhishthira was aggrieved just to keep myself in throne. So many people had to suffer and die because it was mentioned in the purport by Prabhupada in Adi Parva somewhere. It was mentioned that 640 million, almost billion, close to not billion, but 640 million men were killed in just a span of 18 days. And such as a big battle, even hundreds of thousands were missing, were never to be found. And practically, this was the greatest battle in the world ever since the past 5,000 years. So this mass killing was simply because to enthrone me. That is the feeling of Maharaj Yudhishthira. That's why Krishna is called is addressed as Adbhuta Karmana. because he performed a remarkable action of bewildering Yudhishthira, making him incapable of understanding the teachings of Krishna and Vyasa, though Vyasa and Krishna were trying to convince him, but he was not getting convinced. No, I am the cause for all this suffering. Like that, he was thinking. The reason for that is not because, this is because Krishna has a desire that by having Bhishma enlighten Yudhishthira, not anyone else, so that the glories of Bhishma is more knowledge of dharma than Vyasa and even himself. That is what he Krishna want to show to the entire world, that Bhishma is more knowledgeable than everyone. Like that, he wanted to glorify. So that's why Krishna is for Krishna's desire. He motivated as a Paramatma from inside, Prabhupada says. So further, Krishna wanted to make his pure devotees happy. So Bhishma is in his last moments of life. He was given darshana by Lord Krishna. So everyone assembled there, including Pandavas, after enthroning. And at the time of this death, this made Bhishma happy. So Krishna wanted his devotees be happy. And also, text 47, Maharaj Yudhishthira lamentation. He keeps lamenting, um, overwhelmed by the death of his friends. He was just like a common man. He acts like a common man, and he laments. He laments for his friends and the people who died. So and then 48, 49, he says, I am most sinful. I'm, extremely detached. It is simply exhibiting his detachment, extreme detachment. He's taking responsibility on his shoulder, and he is not passing blame onto anyone, other than to himself. So common attitude of common soul. So humbly transfer credit to others with gratitude. That's what Yudhishthira is saying, doing. And Yudhishthira is not asking others to take blame, suffering, instead of, but he is taking on himself. The last verse, Yudhishthira is saying, I cannot counter. In text 51, he's saying, I cannot counteract the pain I inflicted on many women. So here Prabhupada is saying, we continue to do a karma, or kill people as a king, and the reaction will not be, there will be continue to be no more enviousness creating one after another. It doesn't matter how many tapas, japas, homa, yajnas, and atonements we do. We continue to do fruitive activities. It continues to bind us to this material world. Similar to despite of Ashwamedha Yajna, Brahma, and different sacrifices that Yudhishthira king did. He's implying that none of them could counteract the pain I've inflicted on the people. That's what he's saying. That he's actually implying that no matter what we do as a atonement to the karmic fruitive work in the society, nothing could actually bring us. Um, Nothing could counteract our, mm, the acts of a human being without the Krishna being center in their life. So basically, killing men cannot be counteracted by anything. That's what is the opinion of expressed by Yudhishthira Maharaj. So from all these verses up to Canto 1, there are so many pure devotees were introduced, like Vyasa, Narada, Queen Kunti, and where Krishna's identity, Tattva, was explained, and Bhima, Bhishma. And there are so many devotees who are introduced, and there was so glorification of Bhagavatam we heard, and there are also great philosophical points were we heard. Prayers, especially, they are purports are like gems, very rich of knowledge that Prabhupada tried to explain us. And in the prayers of Kunti, we have it was described mostly tattva of Krishna, gunas, leelas, um, and also the heartfelt longing of for Krishna's grace. That was described, um, and she also expressed her fortune that, and that she is able to get his darshan. Similarly, it is our fortune to actually recite this Queen Kunti prayers in the Sangha of devotees. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thanks so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Let's offer obeisance to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyevacha paditana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.